evening. From the Church Rock community. I am a Code 71 worker, and I also live along the Purple Wash where the July 79 spill occurred. The Purple Wash wraps around on the east side and on the south side of my residence, along with my extended relatives. And also on the west side is the old mine where UNC left a waste pile, and HRI has taken over that property. And one of the things that was that we raised concern was the level of radiation that's coming out of that waste pile. I understand it's 10 times above the EPA's allowable limit to community exposure, but yet HRI is saying that they're going to use that as their background level. That's a big concern to me. And as Nelson also mentioned, that a lot of those dust that have been blowing over the years has been coming out of the Purple Wash, and during the last several years, it's been like the deserts in Iraq, where I've seen pictures of how the dust storms are covered those areas. It's usually like that, but this year we were quite fortunate not to have that many dust storms. And so that's one of my concerns. And another concern is the 5-year plan on IHS's part. You said that it was mentioned that the 5-year plan was implemented in June of 2008. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's over 2 years. And what is IHS really doing? Because I don't hear anything about the people coming out to survey the people from that live in the immediate vicinity of these abandoned uranium mines, or either past workers. I just went to my doctor's visit about 3 weeks ago, my regular doctor's visit, and I asked him, I said, aren't you supposed to do a survey? Is there a survey going on now? He didn't know what I was talking about. And so, what is going on with IHS's 5-year plan? Are they supposed to have the survey going? And also, this 5-year plan update, how often is it done? Is it done on every 6 months, quarterly basis, or annually? I believe that the next 5-year update meeting should be held here on the reservation, because it pertains to the Navajo people. And the Navajo people should be able to sit in on this discussion and listen to what's being said and have their input on what's being talked about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Stephen, would you like to talk a little bit about the various parts of this question, and then Clancy or Dr. Peter, if you wanted to comment, that would be great.
Thank you, Senator Udall. Yeah, Mr. King. Just real quickly, the frequencies of the update meetings is really dependent on the leadership by Representative Waxman and his committee staff. They're the ones that call the meetings. Initially, on the heels of the initial hearing, they were about twice a year. Now we're about down to maybe one a year. But we've also had specific meetings on specific and particular aspects of the 5-year plan, like the two-city opened up, and we've also had sit-downs individually with EPA in San Francisco, and we've also had sit-downs with DOE, both in Washington, D.C. or in Grand Junction. The other aspect of community input has been, for the past 2 years, the federal agencies have come to the Navajo Nation with these community stakeholder workshops. We had 2 in Gallup, going back to 2008 and then 2009. Next week, we have the 3rd one, which is sponsored by the federal agencies. This year, it's going to take place in Tuba City. It's a multi-day meeting. I know you know about it because you were there last year. We have all-day sessions, and then sometimes we tack on things in the evening for specific discussions on specific aspects of the 5-year plan. Last year there was a session that was included with the Redwater Pond Road community group and their issues. The one in Tuba City, I know one of the things that we have set up on Wednesday evening is a discussion about some standards that are going to be that US EPA is contemplating for reviewing, and that's for thorium and strontium, I believe, it's an air emission issue that has to deal with the site. So, you know, there is the matter that you raised of whether or not these update meetings should be held solely in Washington or out in the field, but I think that there's a lot of dialogue that is happening where there are avenues for input from the grassroots. From the individual meetings we've had at Redwater Pond Road between US EPA and Redwater Pond Roads Association to the stakeholders meetings, I would agree that there probably could be more, but I think that there's a pretty good level of community input opportunities as well. And then Diane's staff is always willing and ready to go out to meet with chapters or the community groups as well, because you know, that's part of our responsibility as well to hear and listen and to be able to bring your issues to these update meetings. And one of the issues we have brought is the need for IHS to be able to show a little bit more in its activities and endeavors under the 5-year plan. And Dr. Peter, I don't know if you want to respond to what the IHS has been doing in response to Mr. King's question.
Sure, thank you. In the early 90s, when it first became a reality, it was obvious that there wasn't enough medical information to support many of the claims of miners, millers, etc. And so what we did then was we created within our own resources. We didn't get any additional resources, just took it from our annual budget. We weren't asked to ask for resources, so we couldn't ask for resources. But we took it from our budget. We created an office of medical screening, which went to multiple communities all over the reservation, still active today, to deal with the occupational exposure, people that are occupational exposed, or let me put it this way, not occupation, but now compensated, eligible for compensation from RECA. That program still exists. We work with the Office of Uranium miners out of Shiprock, the Alamation office, and we provide a lot of screening. Every single month we have clinics across the reservation. It's easier to do it that way than we have found. It's easier to do it that way than it is to train every single doctor, every single nurse across the reservation. Unfortunately, our doctors come and they leave. They don't all stay long periods of time, so some do, but for them to be knowledgeable and for any scientific study to be valid, you've got to have the same information collected across all people. So if you have collection systems differing in some cities and the way you collect the samples and Gallup, basically your study is not good. And that's just the scientific reality. So that was true of the occupational or RECA issue. We decided again, when we talked about a longitudinal study, we decided again to create another medical screening program and have done so. We hired our first individual who's presently on board. She, Lisa Ali out of Shiprock. She's only one person right now. The other group is several people, and we need to expand that team. So they're going to be doing medical monitoring, medical screening, if you will, and have already held 3 clinics across the reservation this year. 5 actually. They've also held community forums. The first one was here in January to get your take on what the major health issues were, so that we could focus the screening on the issues that you felt were most important to you. So that program has begun. It's only one individual. We need to put more resources into it, but right now the only resources we have to put into it are, we're going to have to take them from somewhere else. Something else to give in order to fund that program. We've participated with the kidney study program at the University of New Mexico. I know most of you know Dr. Johnny Lewis. We're a participant. Samples are being handled by us, laboratory samples, and so forth. And the screening of patients that are participating in that study are being handled by us as well. So we're colleagues, if you will, participating in that study. ATSTR, as mentioned, got funded in the CDC for a birth outcome study. That study was funded this year by Congress. We and the Division of Health, Nation Division of Health, and likely the CHRs are going to be involved in working with Dr. Johnny Lewis again, who just got the award that was announced on the 19th of August. So we're having our first meeting in October to get that study underway. And that's what was chosen by CDC to study with the money they received. Finally, on August 19th, with my superiors from Washington present, and I was there in Washington, asked point blank by the committee members to engage later after the meeting in a telephone conversation that is yet to be scheduled, but we're talking about that now. What kind of additional resources would individuals benefit from, and what other additional studies need to be done. So sometime within the next week or two, I personally will be involved in those discussions with staffers from the committee, and we'll see where that takes us. Obviously, OMB and DHHS have to basically clear anything that I have to say to the committee members. That's just the way the system works. That's the way the agencies have to work. So I'm excited about that opportunity. So that's presently where we're at and where we're headed in the very near future.
Thank you very much. I think